Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Angela Ben and today I'm bringing you Spellbinders Stencil of the Month, November 2024, Squared Away. This is layering stencils, 5 stencils, and I have put little dots at the top right hand corner of the stencils so I know which way they face and which way is the right side of the stencil. It's just easier for me. I used the corner of the Misty to do my stenciling. I placed the Strathmore Bristles Smooth Card 300 series in the corner and I put the stencils. I'm using Dual Tone Crisp Dye Inks from Ultinew. This is a set of 6 crisp dye inks, but I'm only using 5 here because there's only 5 stencils. And I use a small blending brush to apply the ink. It's easy enough to use this. I think it's a great set to create masculine cards. Obviously, it depends on the colors you choose. You can just do the background and just put big sentiments on it. And that would make a lovely card but on its own. Using this set to create masculine cards is a great idea. However, what I do is I use the various Spellbinders Clubkits from November 2024 to complete or assemble the cards. So I show you first how I do the stenciling of one full set. Every time I remove one stencil, I make sure I clean the base or the sticky mat inside my Misty because I don't want the ink to contaminate. And I'm using blending brushes or the small blending brush for all of it because the space of that stencil is not too small that I don't need different size blending brushes. That small blending brush will do it. I chose ink sets like this because I think they complement one another. I do show you various color combinations. I do some of them monochromatic, some of them contrasting, and I even use some glimmer paste and glacier paste. I like including pastes when I do stenciling. It's just something I like doing. It can get a little bit messy, but I think the results are quite amazing. So I continue to do the stenciling and you can see it's completed here and all of the colors are quite complementary. They're quite muted colors and I do like how it's turned out. I go ahead and do another set here and I'm using the Martian Terrain ink set from Ultinew and I finish off by using the Glimmer paste Moonstone. Now this is a white glimmer paste. When I apply it onto the stencil, it does take on the color of the ink underneath. So I think the ink is not quite dry yet, which means the paste, the Moonstone paste, takes on that color and the shine takes on more of an orange hue, which is fine. I do like how it turns out. I do leave it aside for at least an hour to dry. And remember, when you use your pastes, you must wash your stencil, your palette knife, as well as the surface. So there's some glimmer paste on the sticky mat inside my Misty. You need to wipe all of it because when the glimmer paste dries, it does harden and can ruin it. So you want to make sure you leave it aside to dry and then it gets a lovely nice sheen. And here's another one where I use the Tranquility ink set with the Galactica blue glimmer paste to create this color combination, slight muted blue. And here are all the combinations that I've created. I do like experimenting with colors here. And sometimes I think the more you use the product, the more comfortable you get with it, and then you can get more creative with it. And here I've tried a little bit of blues and greens, my favorite combination, blues, greens, and teals. Here's some pastel colors, and here's the ultimate pastel, which I've created using Ultinew Inks Frozen Delights. I'll show you how I put together most of these cards. So I start off with this card where I use the Uni-Ball Signo Gel Gold Pen and I draw on these various squares and rectangles that I've stenciled to create a background of gifts. So this is something I was inspired by another card I saw on the Spellbinders website and I decided to give it a go. I really like how this turned out. It's simple and all I needed to complete it is some patterns with my gel pen here and I put a tag and attach it onto a card base. It's also a great way to do a single layer card because rather than put a tag, I could have just put the glimmer plates onto it and foiled a sentiment straight onto this layer itself. So you can do the patterns with the gold pen here and foil the sentiment onto this layer and you have a single layer card. Or even stamp the sentiment with some white embossing ink and embossing powder. So there are many ways if you want to do single layer cards. And here it is all completed. It's got a nice shine to it and I like the color in the background as well. I'm going to just attach it onto a card base. And here's a different combination I've done with the reds. And I'm using the premium silver marker, the DecoColor. And I use this as my marker when I use my wax seal. But I'm using it to create a similar pattern on a slightly different background. So this is a more monochromatic color. So you can use it for birthday, or indeed you can even use it as a Christmas card background. So it's quite versatile. This stencil, it really depends on the color combination and you can create quite a few different types of cards. Here I've die cut the tortoise from the small die of the month in white card and I'm inking it by attaching it onto my stamp wheel, which is a sticky mat, and applying some inks onto it. I initially looked to assemble this tortoise onto that teal, blue, green background that you see on the screen. I ultimately use it on a different card on the muted blue background because I think this is too much of greens, I think anyway, and I end up assembling this card panel slightly differently. But you get to see how I do the assembly of this card. And I like to add the green and blue. Sometimes I don't have a certain teal. I'll put the green ink and blue ink to create a slightly different type of green. So mixing your inks to create a different ink color is something you can do. So here you go. I don't quite like how it looks. So I put the assembled tortoise die cut separately or aside, and I die cut some hats from the small die of the month and large die of the month and inked them. For the sentiment, I'm stamping this sentiment from the clear stamp of the month. It's a birthday sentiment. May your birthday be as delightful as you. And I'm stamping it with the ink that I used in the background. Now, because these are dye inks, they dry quite quickly, but I want to emboss it with some clear embossing powder. So I'm cleaning the stamp and applying some Versamark ink, which is the embossing ink, so that it will catch on the clear embossing powder and allow me to heat emboss it. So it'll be a nice shine when I place the sentiment onto the card front. Because the embossing powder is really fine, I always start heating it on the back of the sentiment so that it catches onto the card before I start heating it on the front and melt the embossing powder. Use the coordinating die to die cut the sentiment, and I die cut an extra layer because I wanted to layer up the sentiment to give it a bit of dimension when I place it onto that vellum. Here I'm just assembling the hats, very easy assembly of the hats, and because the die cut is tiny, I'm using a reverse tweezer to hold on to it while I apply some liquid glue onto it. All the products that I've used are listed in the description below for your ease of reference, so do check it out. And having this little picker tool, the Crystal Katana Media Picker tool, is really, really useful because it helps with all the tiny die cuts when you want to attach them. Here I'm cutting down the stenciled panel. Essentially it measures 4¼ inches by 5½ inches, which is an A2 card size. I cut that down and then later on you'll see I realize I can use my die, my A2 die from the precision layering set from Spellbinders to die cut it, and it's easier. Because vellum, so I will attach all of these sentiments and all of the little hat die cuts onto the vellum. And because I don't want the glue to be seen through the vellum, because adhesive will be, you can see through the adhesive on the front of the vellum, I will only place adhesive on where the die cuts are. That's one easy way to adhere vellum. I decided to introduce the orange, and I do add an additional orange hat later on because I wanted a contrasting color onto those hues of blue, teals and green. I thought adding a contrasting color, orange, will add to the composition of the card. Let me know what you think. I like the way it looks. And I adhere the card panel onto the card front using double-sided tape as usual because I think it's cleaner. I do not use liquid glue to attach these panels to the card front. I think sometimes it warps. So this is my preference anyhow. Everyone's got their own preference on how they adhere a card panel to a card front. Now, my Glimmer machine has arrived. Finally, I've been waiting for this for a little while, and I find the Spellbinders Glimmer machine really easy to use. Literally, you put it on, you wait for that green light to go solid, and then you get your card ready, and then you press the timer. The timer blinks, and when the timer stops blinking and goes solid, you put it through your Platinum 6 machine. Literally that easy. So I'm just using the hinge method here and going to do some foiling with the tangerine hot foil. This is the happy birthday sentiment that comes with the Glimmer of the Month. There's a couple of sub-sentiments that comes with it as well, and I'm going to be using some best ever craft tape to create that hinge and place the same hot foil. It's really easy to use this Glimmer machine, and I'm really impressed on how effective it is. I will have to figure out the timing for the various hot foils because, as I've mentioned before, not all the hot foils you get the same timing. Sometimes it's longer with these hot foils like this tangerine. I think I put it in a couple of times, but the one hot foil that never fails for me is the polished brass. I always think it hot foils the best. Not sure what pigmentation or what coloring it's in that hot foil. If you want to get a perfect hot foil the first time around, polished brass is the way to go. But then these hot foils go well as well. I always return it to the docking station because I want it to keep warm because I do quite a bit of hot foiling. So here's a little bit of overfoiling here. Overfoiling is easy to be rectified. You just take a soft rubber eraser here that I'm using and I just raise it and you get rid of all that overfoiling. I used the coordinating die that comes with the Glimmer of the Month and die cut a whole load of it. So you will see me show a bit more on the Glimmer of the Month set when I do a separate video on just showcasing the Glimmer of the Month club kit. It's great to do all these sentiments in one go when you've got your hot foil machine on because you can put it onto cards, and I do like foiled sentiments on cards. It just adds to it. And here I'm using the Precision Layering A2A die set. It's great because that die is right at the edge of that die, so it's easy enough to place it and get a perfect die cut. And I use that for all of the stencils because most of them are A2 cards. Remember this stitching I did in a previous video in this month's club kits? I didn't use it in the end, and I think the coloring goes well for this particular stenciled background. And I place that stencil background onto an A2 card base and place that frame with some double-sided tape onto it as well. So it just makes the assembly of this card really, really quick. Because all I'm going to do now is place a couple of that balloon dies from the small die set of the month and the sentiment birthday bliss from that set as well. Pretty easy assembly. I do have separate videos for most of these Spellbinders club kits, so do check out my YouTube channel, Angela Brennan Creations. But when I complete all the videos for each of the month's Spellbinders club kits, I will be putting a playlist together, so you'll have all those videos in one playlist. And when I release that video with a playlist, I will also have what I call a bonus project, where I will be doing a card or a project and use all the club kits that I get for that month in one card or one project. It's a challenge I've given myself, and I started doing it last month, and I want you to let me know what you think about it. I think it's quite fun to try and use all the products in one card or one project. For the next card here, I'm going to be attaching that tag. This tag is also from the stitching die of the month, and I stamped the sentiment from the clear stamp of the month. And what I'm going to do is place it onto the middle of the card. So I'm just using some metallic gold thread from Diamond metallic gold thread from DMC, and I'm going to create a bit like a gift. So I'm just placing the thread on across either side and intertwine the tag in the middle. You will see when I put the tag together, I do place it upside down. I do rectify it later on, but it's easy enough to do. I really like how this card turned out. Now, what I wished I'd done is I wished I had hot foiled the sentiment directly onto the card panel. I might yet do that again when I do the Glimmer of the Month video, because I do like to see how that would turn out, because I think it's nice to have some single layered cards, especially when you're going to post them. It's nice and easy. So check that out when I do my Glimmer of the Month video. So here, very simply tying the tag onto the middle of that, where the thread intersects. But you will see it's upside down here. I do rectify it later on, but it's fine. It's an easy assembly of a card, and then I just attach it onto a card front. Now this one is an A6 card because I cut it slightly smaller to give it a bit of a frame. An A6 card is a common card size in the UK. It measures 10.5 centimeters by 14.8 centimeters. And the other card, I assemble it similarly as well, the red card that goes with it, which you'll see towards the end of the video. I kept the assembly of this card really simple because I wanted the background to be the focus, because it's nice and rich colors. With the glimmer paste, it really comes out well. And I wanted to put some foil sentiments to keep it simple. And I do add a couple of die cut hats in contrasting colors. And that is the assembly of the card. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, remember to press that notification bell so you're alerted when new videos are uploaded. I do like to place my sentiments on cards using a combination of dimensional tape as well as liquid glue. This pastel background is perfect for baby cards, welcome baby cards. I use it though to create a card with the large die of the month. You can see the assembly of the die cuts in the different video where I do a large die of a month. Here I'm using the clear stamp of the month sentiment. I'm going to stamp it directly onto the stencil panel with some Nocturne ink pad. But because I'm going to do some heat embossing, I treat it with some anti-static powder. I use the Misty really because I want to make sure I get good placement, and I like to double stamp sometimes because I want to sprinkle some clear embossing powder and make sure that the pigment ink is nice and ready for it. And per usual, I will start heating it on the back of the card and then move on to the front of the card to melt the embossing powder. Pretty standard the way I do my stamping, and I always like to finish it off with clear embossing powder. And here is the frog, the little frog in the car with the banner saying hooray from the large die of the month. Again, assembly of these, please do check out my other video, which will be in my YouTube channel, and I'll also look to put it in the description below. You see there's a little shirt for the frog there. I didn't do that in my large die of the month, and a kind subscriber of mine pointed it out. Thank you very much for pointing it out. I'm pleased to be able to rectify it. So I do use that little die to create that t-shirt or the shirt for the frog, and that's the die there. So sometimes I get a bit confused which ones to use, but I try to use it to the best of my abilities. But thank you for pointing it out. I really appreciate it. And here is the tortoise that I die cut earlier on. I decided to use it on this background because I think it's contrasting. I like to have contrasting images. I think it pops better because earlier in that background I think I'd have got lost with all those teals and blues. So I think it pops better on this muted background. And the hat is getting a little bit lost, so I use a white gel pen and just create a bit of a pattern so it stands out a little bit. I end up coloring it all white later on actually. So here is another contrasting colors that I used to do the stenciling of this panel, and I decided to do some stitching directly on this panel. So this stitching die of the month is great. You can either die cut a frame to stitch or just put that holes to do the cross stitch frame directly onto the card panel, and I choose to do that here, and I'm using some gold thread, diamond metallic gold thread. Now I start off by doing half stitches here. With metallic thread it's a little bit harder. If you see me stitching it, I'm putting my thumb on the latest stitch. Every time I do a stitch, I'm placing my thumb on it because I need to hold the thread taut. So if you're a beginner try not to use metallic thread, use cotton thread, it's easier. So you can leave the frame with a frame full of half stitches if you want. And I could have done that, but I decided to go on and do another round of it and do cross stitch. So again, you can either do half stitch or cross stitch, totally up to you. And I complete this frame with cross stitch using metallic thread. I have assembled all of these Stencil of the Month cards using the various club kits from the same month. That's the thing about Spellbinders. All of these club kits of the month, they coordinate a theme. But to be fair, this Stencil of the Month, you could literally do any kind of card you want depending on the color you've chosen. So it's really versatile. But I decided to use the various stencils of the month from November 2024 to complete these cards. And that's why I wanted to show you how you can use your caboodle set if you get various sets and how you can use them together. This sentiment is the negative hot foil of the Glimmer of the Month. So in my next video, I'll be showcasing the Glimmer of the Month kit, and I show you how I do negative hot foiling as well with my new Glimmer machine, which is really easy to use, and I was really surprised, but you'll see that in my next video. So I placed the sentiments. Now I could have just left the Glimmer sentiment, but I decided to add 3 balloons there. They're not really necessary, but I decided to add that because I associate a happy birthday card with balloons. So I thought the balloon theme does go. So I just put balloons of a similar color to the stenciled background, and I do attach one of that balloons with some dimensional tape. I store my Spellbinders club kits by month because they are issued by theme. However, sometimes if there are kits that can be used in a versatile manner, like this month's Stencil of the Month and Stitching Die of the Month, I will keep them separately because I can use them more frequently. Here are all the cards that I've created. Here is the set that I've just drawn some gifts onto the rectangles and squares that I've stenciled and added the Stitching of the Die tag. I really like how this card turned out. And here is the other cards that I've done some more stitching. I have used a lot of stitching on these cards here because I do like stitching cards, and use my Glimmer paste, Glacier paste. Get your pastes out. We've all got pastes. Get them out and use them. And this stencil set is really about thinking of the color combinations you want to use. So this is a really versatile stencil set, and it's great for masculine cards. We all struggle with masculine cards, but if you choose the right color combination, you can create a myriad of masculine cards. So challenge yourself to use this stencil and create a whole host of different cards with different sentiments. See if you can make almost every sentiment that can go with this background, just merely by choosing a different medium or a different color to create that stenciled background. Give yourself that challenge. I think it's really fun. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, remember to press that notification bell so you're alerted when new videos are uploaded. Here are close-up pictures of all the cards that I've created. Go get your kit. It's available to be ordered until the 27th of each month from the Spellbinders website. I have a link to all the products I've used in the description below, as well as a link to the other Spellbinders Club Kits videos that I've published. Thank you so much for stopping by. Happy crafting, and I'll catch you at my next video. Do take care.